NVIDIA earnings.
Is it the biggest earnings report ever? This is the market.
Well, I like the stat was it in Barron's in your story that this calendar year NVIDIA could earn the most of any company ever.
Yes,
$190
we have to give my
billion.
colleague Al Root a shout out for that.
Yeah,
that was Al
I mean
that
number. We love big numbers.
Yes.
That's a great size and scope here that they could earn this year more than any company ever. I've kind of come to think that earnings don't really matter for the NVIDIA trade.
I think
in a weird way, like they've fallen the last 3 times, and it doesn't matter what they say. It sort of matters for the overall market tone, but the relationship between how NVIDIA is doing as a business and how it performs the day after earnings, that relationship sort of has broken down.
Well, because for me, when I think about companies going into earnings, it's always, okay, where are the concerns? Where can people be surprised? And the concern for NVIDIA, or the broader market for that matter, for 2 years now has not been, are people really want more AI chips? Are we still doing the AI chip buying thing? We're definitely doing it.
Yes, we're doing it.
We're definitely doing it. So NVIDIA can't answer that question for you really in any impressive way on Wednesday afternoon. I don't think there's an impressive way they can tell the story of more people are buying our chips than we initially thought. Demand is through the roof.
Right.
When you look at some of the other chip makers, like say in Intel, which we've just recently recommended NVIDIA at Barron's, and we also recommended Intel before earnings. But the Intel story was so different because Intel's still in a turnaround. There's a ton of room for surprise. When you're going into earnings and you're expected to make only 50 cents in the full year of 2026, then estimates shoot up to $1 per share. Like there's a big surprise that can happen there. For NVIDIA to surprise as the largest stock in the market that's expected to make $190 billion this year, it's just a little bit harder. Where I think people will slowly maybe rotate back into NVIDIA, and where the story probably is to your point, it's not an earnings story necessarily, it's the consistency of earnings.
Right.
It is the fact that they are still the leader in this market. And if you do believe that the AI build out is still early, which I think we've all started to shift back to now, rather than looking for where people are monetizing, it's, are we in the third inning of just the build out? And that's going to be a 27, 28 story as people still try and get more compute. NVIDIA is still a leader within that. And so NVIDIA continues to be a consistent performer within that. It's not going to be your 10-bagger anymore, but maybe it's your more steady Eddie tech trade within semis, rather than going down and speculating on some of the smaller companies.
Right, and again, that's not something you're going to learn about on earnings. I mean, it's more just a confirmation of the ongoing story rather than, there's not much suspense around it. I was looking at some of the questions that the Bloomberg intelligence team said that they were looking into ahead of this. How much incremental upside exists beyond Blackwell and Rubin from some of the newer stuff, Grok, the Vera standalone CPU, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's color though. That's not like the thing that things will hinge on. Are there any supply chain and or production issues that are affecting Rubin ramp-up timing? Sure, that would be nice. But again, it's not, Well,
what about, this is one I've been thinking about. What about the report last week from Reuters that NVIDIA was going to start selling H200 chips?
Okay, so
do you think we get clarity on that on the call?
So that report was not entirely new. It was just that the U.S. government, that report, what it did that was new was it named the Chinese companies that the U.S. said can buy the chips. But besides that, the U.S. has already said, you're allowed to sell the H200 chips. But if China doesn't say you're allowed to buy them, then it doesn't matter. Yes, that would be, if Jensen got on the call and said, China has greenlit that we can sell these chips, that would be meaningful upside. The street is just discounting that they will ever get China revenue ever again.
Yeah, China's just out of the stock right now.
So if it happens, yes. But we didn't get any indications out of those talks, even with Jensen hopping on the plane last minute and showing up.
Oh, yeah.
That there was any progress on that. So yes, that would be a huge surprise if.
Because that was sort of my takeaway from the Trump trip to China in general, was a little hard to parse exactly what was agreed on, what wasn't agreed on. For instance, the Boeing, how many planes is Boeing really selling? Is that a real agreement, et cetera? So I sort of left last week thinking, well, let's wait to hear from some of these companies.
Yeah.
We need earnings where these companies are going to actually answer these kinds of questions. Executives have a compelling interest to tell the real story about what they're selling and how many units they will sell. And so NVIDIA will be the first example of an executive that was there, where we'll get to hear from their CEO 3-4 days later. But I am curious if it's not a media briefing, so no one's going to ask how the meeting was, right? His earnings call is not someone that's going to ask a question like we would.
I mean, somebody might ask a question, do you have any indications if that market is going to open up?
Yes.
They might.
I think that question could specifically come up, and that is material to the story.
Yes,
again,
sure.
in a company where we're looking for where an upside surprise could be, that's probably the biggest one. Or maybe quantum computing happens way faster than we think, and NVIDIA wins in that space. But that feels like a 10-year out.